What's up, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For today, we are going to start off this video with kind of more of like an educational / informative video. I did have a request for a stretching video, but I think this is a really good time to also mention like the benefits of stretching, as well as why to stretch, along with a video of my kind of stretching regimen. So let's start off with the who. So we're gonna do a who, why, when, how, and what of stretching. And I have some notes here so that way I don't miss anything. And if you guys have any questions, just be sure to leave them in the comment box and I will answer those. So who should be stretching? Big surprise, right? Everyone should be stretching. So throughout our day, we're using our muscles, and when we use our muscles, everything's gonna get tight. So therefore, everyone should be stretching at least a little bit throughout every single day. It is recommended through research 3 to 5 times a week to be stretching. Why should we be stretching? So it's basically to keep our bodies in an optimal position. So as we develop and as we grow up, our body forms into a way that is most optimal for our movement. So from the time we start walking until we are adults, we are in this optimal position in order to move appropriately. But sometimes the way we stand or the way we exercise, the way we sit can bring our body into this non-optimal position. And so that is why stretching is kind of to combat that, as well as strengthening to combat that. So if you can think of your muscle fibers sit like this. So they're on top of each other and they should be, you know, like half and half. They shouldn't be overlapping too much and they shouldn't be too spread apart. So when we exercise, everything is going to kind of shrink, or as we're walking, things are going to shrink. And throughout the day, the way we sit, things are just gonna get tighter and tighter and tighter. So the reason behind stretching is to kind of bring everything back to this middle in order to maintain that optimal position. When is the best time to stretch? So if you are not really like a gym goer or you don't lift or anything like that, the best time to be stretching after like your work day would be at the end of the day before bed. This is going to kind of just put everything back where it belongs before you go to bed. You could do it in the morning also, but then you're gonna go to work throughout the day and either sit at a desk or be standing, and you're going to tighten up again. So I definitely recommend at the end of the day, in order to just put everything back where it belongs. It's kind of how I try to picture it. So if you can think of like sitting at a desk all day, your body is gonna kind of be like this, unfortunately. So everything within like your chest and your neck, everything is going to tighten up. So you want to picture opening up. So if you're at a desk job all day, or if you're a student, you want to think about stretching out your chest muscles. So I will show you a stretch later on and how to do that, but just giving you a picture. If you are someone who stands all day, you're more than likely going to have like a tight back, tight quads, or hip flexors. So you want to try and focus on those muscle groups at the end of the day in order to stretch those out. So if you are an avid exerciser and you do go to the gym, the best time to stretch is directly after exercise. So a lot of people think that you should be stretching before exercise, and that is a common misconception. So before exercise, you should be doing like a dynamic warm-up or a dynamic stretch, which I've shown you guys in videos on how to do that on leg day. And I do have a video that I'm currently prepping for you guys on my dynamic upper body warm-up. So that is just to get your muscles warmed up and woken up and saying like, hey, it's time to do work now. So when it comes to stretching before working out, the research shows that it decreases the amount of power that your muscles are able to perform. So the reason behind that is, if you think again of like your muscle fibers, if you're stretching before a workout, you're doing like a static stretch, so that means holding a position for an extended period of time. If you're doing a static stretch, you're kind of stretching everything out and bringing everything farther apart. And the farther apart your muscles are, or your muscle fibers are, the less optimal they're going to work. So you're not going to get as strong of a contraction when you're trying to use those muscles. As well as if you never stretch, your muscles are going to be super, super tight and overlapping a lot. So you're still not going to get that optimal contraction. The most optimal contraction is at that like halfway overlapping point. So stretching is just like very, very, very important. So there's also different kinds of stretching. So there's different ways to stretch. So this is now the how of stretching. So there's ballistic, static, and dynamic. Ballistic is the one type of stretching that is not recommended in any research. So that's kind of like your bouncing stretch. And you have that, which is not recommended ever because it's making your muscles kind of go weak, whoop, whoop, whoop. I don't know why I have to do the sound effect, but it's kind of just making your muscles go like this. And if you were to stretch it apart too much and too quickly, that could cause injury, which us fitness people do not want. No one wants. Fitness or no fitness. You don't want an injury. So then you have static stretching. So this is a prolonged stretch. So for individuals under the age of 60, a static stretch should last longer than 30 seconds, but shorter than 60 seconds in order for your muscle fibers to actually have an effect from the stretch. So you have a lot of elasticity in your muscles and in your skin, but you need to be holding that stretch for a certain period of time in order for the elasticity to actually be affected and for the stretch to actually make any kind of impact on your muscle fibers. Over the age of 60, it is recommended to stretch longer than 60 seconds, which is a long time. But as we age, the elasticity in our muscle fibers and in our skin decreases. That is why we get wrinkles. So you have to stretch for a longer period of time because your muscles and skin are less elastic when you are older. So I personally do 35 seconds for every muscle group that I'm trying to stretch. So that way I am getting above that 30-second threshold, but I'm not sitting there forever. So that is static. So staying in one spot for a prolonged period of time. And then you have dynamic. So if you watch like sports shows and things like that, you'll see the athletes doing a dynamic stretch / warm up before their game. So this is kind of to focus on the muscles you're going to be using throughout the activities you're going to be doing, but you're also still stretching. So if you guys have watched my first leg video that I ever posted, I do a dynamic stretch warm up, and so I'm swinging my legs back and forth and then forward and back. The back and forth is going to get my abductors and my adductors, and the forward and back is going to get my hip flexors and my hip extensors. When I do upper extremity, I kind of do some swinging, some up and downs in order to get all of my chest muscles kind of stretched out, warmed up, and my back muscles stretched out and warmed up. This has been shown to make the largest impact on performance. So when they did studies comparing static stretching versus a dynamic stretching / warm up, those like athletes that did the dynamic stretching or warm up had greater muscle power throughout the activities that they were doing. And it's pretty safe to do. So I always start with a dynamic warm up before my workouts, and then I end with that static stretch, because once you're done working out, your muscles are going to be here and be really tight. And if you don't stretch after, of course they are going to loosen up a little bit, maybe it's like here, but you want them, like I said, that optimal half and half overlap. I'll be completely honest, I probably stretch not as much as I should. I used to be a lot better about it, but now that we're at like our apartment gym, they don't have like a stretching section. so I don't really stretch as much. I still try to do stretching like 3 times a week, but I should be doing it after every single workout, so 6 times a week. But I'm trying to be better about it because I am starting to get really tight. And if you don't have appropriate range of motion in your joints, you can't perform weightlifting activities at like the most optimal way because your joints aren't able to get into that specific position. Specifically for me, I have really tight hip flexors. If I do, I've shown you guys this. When I go to do glute kickbacks, I can't kick all the way up because then because of my tight hip flexors, my back will start to arch, and so then I'm using my back instead of using my glutes. So I can't kick all the way back, but I'm working on it. Trying to loosen up those hip flexors a little bit. So it's really important to stretch so that way you can use the full range of motion for every exercise, because if you're not using the full range of motion, you're not really activating the muscle all the way. You're only using it through partial range, which is the most optimal, obviously. So now we'll go into the what you should stretch. I will get into the video on my stretching regimen. Let's do it.